Hi guys, and welcome back to another Premier League video. Moving into round 13, a recap on round 12, and it didn't go well at all. Not only did I get no correct scores, I only managed to get 4 of the results right out of the 10 fixtures. So it was a very bad week for me, but I'm a bit more optimistic about this week, hoping we can get some scores out of it. So let's see what I've predicted. And starting off with Arsenal taking on Newcastle. Now Arsenal, they'd won 3 in a row. They were on a good unbeaten run. And then they got battered 4-0 by Liverpool. And they really struggled in that game. I think it was a step too far. But let's see what their ability is to bounce back from a game like that. Up against the Newcastle side that 12 games in still haven't won a game. They have drawn their last 2, however, and the last game was Eddie Howe's first game in charge, although he wasn't actually in charge because he had COVID. But he'd obviously done the training sessions with them and everything and put his tactics in place for the game. And they came out with a 6-goal thriller, 3-3 with Brentford. So Newcastle, I think they can start gaining more points than they were at the start of the season. But I don't think they'll get it against this Arsenal side. I think they'll bounce back well, and I can see Arsenal winning this 2-1. Palace versus Villa next. And Palace, they're unbeaten in 7. They've got a crazy record so far. They've won 3, drew 7, lost 2 in the Premier League, which is very weird that they've only lost 2 games. And they'd be a lot higher if some of those last-minute equalisers against them didn't go in, because they'd have 2 extra points against Brighton, 2 extra points against Arsenal. It would boost them up the league a lot, but their problem is drawing too much. And they drew their last game 3-3 with Burnley, so they like drawing a lot. Villa, they're on a losing run under Dean Smith. Sacked him, first game in for Steven Gerrard, and 2 late goals secured the win against Brighton in a 2-0 victory. This game, I have to go for a draw because Palace can't stop doing it, and Palace are a good side. They just lack that cutting edge to win games, but they always have enough, and I'd fancy them to draw against the majority of the teams in this division. So, I'll go for a 1-1. Liverpool versus Southampton next. And Liverpool, they beat Arsenal 4-0 after losing 3-2 to West Ham, their first Premier League loss. So they bounced back very well in a tough fixture and just they walked past Arsenal, to be honest. Southampton, they lost 2-1 to Norwich. So you'd think I'd go for a big Liverpool win here. But Southampton are good defensively. I think it was just a bit of playing Norwich at the wrong time as they just had a new manager come in, Dean Smith. And that can always make a team struggle because they don't know how to set up against the opposition. I think that was Southampton's issue. And Southampton tend to do well against the tougher clubs to beat, the teams around the top. Don't forget, they drew 0-0 earlier in the season with Man City. So Southampton, I think they can get something out of this. But I don't think they will. They've got the ability to. They can really push at teams and stop them from scoring. Good defensively, but I don't think they'll get it. I think it'll be a very tight game, which is surprising. But Liverpool to just nick it 2-1. On to Norwich versus Wolves now. And Norwich, they've won 2 in a row, which I didn't think I'd be saying that because they were awful at the start of the season. They were bottom on 2 points, but they've won their last 2 games. They're only 2 wins, and maybe they could escape because at the start of the season, everyone assumed they were down, but they're not far off safety now already. So if they can pick up their form, like they have done, who knows? Now, they obviously beat Southampton 2-1 in their last game. It was quite funny because it was Dean Smith's first game, and his last game as Villa boss was against Southampton, but they lost that 1-0. So it'll feel good for him to be able to beat Southampton, as they were the team that really cost him the Villa job in the end. But Norwich, I don't know how to call them now, because are they going to go on a run? I'm not sure. And Wolves, they're a good side. They're very high up in the table. I'm pretty sure they're sitting in 6th at the moment. And out of their last 7 games, they've only lost 1, winning 5 and drawing 1. So they're in very good form. And their last game was against West Ham, and they beat them 1-0, just after West Ham had beat Liverpool. So Wolves are looking very strong at the moment. Bruno Lage, he may be working something there, like Nuno was when he was there for those seasons where they kept finishing in the same spot up the table, getting into the Europa League. So you never know with this one. It is difficult to tell. And also, Dean Smith, a little bit to add to it, he'll want to get something over Wolves, because obviously Wolves were 2-0 down against Villa, and Wolves scored those 3 goals in 10 minutes to win the game. And that was against Dean Smith and part of that run that got him sacked. But I think Wolves will have too much, and they seem quite good at the back recently, especially keeping a clean sheet against West Ham, who are a very good attacking side. So I'm going to go Wolves to win 1-0. Brighton versus Leeds next. And Brighton, they're occupying a spot in the top 10 at the moment, but they haven't won in 7 games, which just shows how well they started. But they're tailing off now. In those 7 games, they've drawn 5, lost 2. So they're still hard to beat, but they just can't win. They're not clinical enough. They're a bit like Palace in a way. And with Brighton, I don't know. I just can't see them scoring more than 1 goal in a game. Leeds, they lost 2-1 to Tottenham. And I thought they were picking it up a bit. But I don't know, they're really hard to read. I feel like both teams are quite hard to read. And I originally thought this is a very difficult one, could go either way. But I don't really think it can. I think there's only one way, and it's down the middle. I'm a bit uncertain about what score to go for here, as realistically, I'm not sure I can see these teams scoring goals. But with Rafinha on the pitch, and Trossard, again, very creative for Brighton, I think there is a goal either side in this one. So, I'll go 1-1. Now, over a 5-game sample size, these next 2 teams are probably the worst 2 in form in the league. It's Brentford versus Everton. But Brentford, I don't think there's much to worry about, because you're still playing quite well. Haven't won in 5, but the last one was a 3-3 draw with Newcastle, so there were goals in it, and they can score. It's just they're struggling at the other end to keep goals out at the moment. I don't think, again, it's much to worry about, because they're playing an Everton side that haven't won in 6, and they've lost 4 of those games, and the latest was a 3-0 loss against Man City. Now, obviously, Man City will do that to a lot of teams, and I did watch the majority of that game, and Everton provided nothing at all on the counter-attack. Iwobi kept trying to get through, kept getting tackled. They just couldn't create anything, really. So I don't think there's much to worry about for Brentford in this game, as Everton are struggling. And it makes me wonder, not that I think he should be sacked, but obviously with Rafa Benitez's links to Liverpool, and the Everton fans were a bit wary about him coming in at the start. Obviously they started well, but now that Calvert-Lewin's not there, they are really struggling. So, could he be one of the next managers out, just because the fans will turn against him quicker than a lot of other teams would? I'm not sure. But I think after this game, he might be in a bit of trouble, because I'm going for Brentford to win 2-0. Burnley versus Spurs next. And Burnley, they're unbeaten in 4. You'd think that might lift them out of the relegation zone, but they're still in there, just. I think they will put more games into this run, as Burnley do tend to be a team that go on a run, then have 6 shocking games, then go on a little run, 6 shocking. It's always like that with Burnley every season. And they drew their last game 3-3 with Palace. So they've shown they can score. Maxwell Cornet has been a revelation for Burnley. I think if they didn't have him, they'd probably be sitting bottom or maybe about level on points with Newcastle. He's scored a lot of important goals and he's creative, he provides an outlet, he's a very good player for them, and it could prove to be a very key signing if they manage to stay up. Now Spurs, they beat Leeds 2-1 last week. It was Conte's first win in the league for Spurs, and I sort of thought they were going to progress from there. Then they put a bit of a reserve team, substitutes in against Slovenian champions Mura in the Europa Conference League. Assuming that they're going to win, Harry Kane was still playing, and they end up losing that game 2-1. So I just don't know what to say about Spurs, really. A lot of those players that played in that game, their Spurs careers are probably looking like they're over. Doherty, Davinson Sanchez played terribly. He kept getting done. For both goals, he was the player that was dribbled past. But then like Dele Alli going forward, not good enough. And Dombele didn't play great either. So I don't know, I'm really struggling with Spurs at the moment. I don't know how to call their games. And I think Burnley can get something out of this because I don't think Spurs are great. Obviously, Kane scored the goal. Son, as soon as he came on, looked like the difference maker. He started doing things and Tottenham got on top a bit more then. But I don't know. I think Burnley can keep up their unbeaten run. I'm going to go for a draw, but I don't actually think Spurs will get many goals in this. I don't think Burnley have a problem scoring. I actually think Spurs, with Kane and Son, have a bigger issue up front than Burnley, which really says something about the position Spurs are in at the moment. But I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. Leicester versus Watford next, and this is an interesting one. Leicester, for me, still haven't really got going this season. They've been struggling quite a bit. They lost 3-0 to Chelsea last week, and Chelsea just blew them out of the water. Although they have done that to a lot of teams, I expected a bit more of a fight from Leicester, and it wasn't there. Watford, to be fair, under Ranieri, they've been in good form. They did lose their first game 5-0 to Liverpool. However, Ranieri hadn't had much time with the squad to get his tactics in, and Liverpool were in very good form then. So it was a game that they were never really going to get anything out of. And I just think he needed to use that game just to look at some players, see how much work they would put in and things like that, to figure out the squad going forward in the more winnable games. The next game, he goes and beats Everton 5-2, which is a very good performance. Then they lost 2 in a row, 1-0. And one of those was against Arsenal, who were also in very good form. So to only, to defend that well, only let 1 goal in against Arsenal and play pretty well is good. And then last weekend, they went and beat Man United 4-1. And they also missed a penalty in that game. They probably could have scored about 6 or 7, to be honest. But they beat them 4-1. And it ultimately got Solskjaer the sack, which I'm sure a lot of Premier League fans are very sad about, apart from Man United fans, as everyone sort of wanted him to stay there because it was looking like an easy 3 points, or at least a draw at the moment. They're in awful form. But I think Watford have improved under Ranieri. So I think a lot of people will be going for Leicester in this game, or a draw. But I'm going to go the complete opposite. I'm going to back Watford. And I think they're actually capable of scoring quite a few goals. The attacking players, Josh King, Emmanuel Dennis, Ismail Assar, they're so good. And then João Pedro tends to come off the bench and he does well as well. And they're so quick on the counter-attack. It's fluid. It's good to watch. And I can see them causing this Leicester team a lot of problems. So I'm going to go Watford to win 3-1. Man City versus West Ham next. And this is a very interesting one. Man City, they obviously beat Everton 3-0 last weekend. And then in midweek, they beat PSG 2-1. And it was a very good performance from Man City. They were dominant throughout the whole game. And I can't believe that they weren't leading at half time with the amount of chances they created. But they just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. And PSG weren't very good at all. They were trying to carry 3 players up front and everyone else defend. And you can't do that. Especially against a team like Man City. It just will not work. Which was shown. Now West Ham, they beat Liverpool 3-2. Incredible result. One that I did predict correctly as well. And then you sort of thought, okay, they're going to push on now. They're serious about this. And then they lost 1-0 to Wolves. Now, Wolves are obviously a good side, but I just expected a bit more from West Ham and them to really push on. And they didn't. And with the form Man City are in at the moment, I really can't see West Ham getting anything out of this game. I feel like it's quite different between Man City and Liverpool because Man City, they've got Kyle Walker. If anyone gets in behind, Kyle Walker's on them. And he always seems to catch whoever it is. He's not slowing down at all. He's ridiculously quick and he's so good defensively. The creativity of Cancelo, you could obviously compare to Alexander-Arnold. But defensively this season, Man City are a lot tighter. And I'm not sure what's happened to Liverpool defensively, but they're struggling a bit. And obviously Van Dijk's injury, he's now came back, but that could have something to do with it. A lot of players aren't the same after they come back from that injury. They seem to play a very high line and get caught on the counter, Liverpool, which is what happened in the West Ham game for the Pablo Fornals goal. And a lot of breaks around that time as well that West Ham were getting. But I don't think Man City will give them those breaks because they just dominate the ball. They just make you chase after the ball. You can never get it. And they tire teams out. And although I was tempted to go for West Ham to score, I think Man City are that good defensively that they won't be able to score. I'm going to go Man City to win 2-0. On to Chelsea versus Man United now. And this is a game I am really looking forward to. Definitely going to be watching it. As Chelsea are in incredible form. They've had a brilliant week. They beat Leicester 3-0 on the weekend. And then midweek in the Champions League, they absolutely wiped the floor with Juventus. They beat them 4-0. It could have been more. And Chelsea are just looking unstoppable at the moment. They just don't concede goals. Obviously, they play 5 at the back, so you'd think that would help a lot. But then on the attack, they've obviously got one less attacking / midfield player because they've got an extra defender. But the wing-backs operate so well that it's like they've got 2 extra defenders and an extra attacker. So it is like they've got 12 men on the pitch, which is just crazy. But they play so well, cover so much distance, and Thomas Tuchel has done a brilliant job there at getting them to do exactly what he wants. They are very good, and they don't look like they can be beaten at the moment. And they're playing Man United. So if this was a week ago, you'd say Chelsea all day. But interesting news at Man United. After that 4-1 loss to Watford, Solskjaer was sacked. He was gone. Carrick took charge. They played a midweek game, beat Villarreal 2-0 in the Champions League, which means they're through to the last 16. Brilliant result for Carrick. And then news comes in. They've appointed Ralph Rangnick until the end of the season. And apologies for the pronunciation. I'm not very good at pronouncing names. However, he is a very good coach. He was obviously at Leipzig. and part of the whole Red Bull foundation, really. Not foundation, but he's played a big part in their clubs. And he has created the whole style of football for pressing, which it's sort of like Bielsa in a way, how Guardiola looks up to Bielsa. This is similar for Klopp and Tuchel to Ralph Rangnick. And Klopp did say in an interview that Man United have now got a proper manager, so everyone in the league should be worried. Because I think Rangnick, obviously he'll try and win this game. He's going to try and win every game. But this game, it's going to be difficult, obviously, up against Chelsea. And I think he'd obviously take a point, but he wants to use this game to see how much effort players put in. Because his system is all about work rate. You have to always be pressing, always be working your socks off. And there's a lot of players in that Man United team that don't do that. Now, I can understand with Ronaldo, he's a world-class striker. He scored so many goals for them. Maybe he'll let him off. Like, you can carry one player on a team. As long as they're in attack, everyone else does the defensive work and that player stays up front. You can do that, but your pressing has to be incredible. I think he's capable of it. But being up against his Chelsea side in his first game, I think he'll use it to test a few players and just sort of see, okay, who can actually work how I want them to. So, I'm not saying he's going to throw the game, of course I'm not. I think they will obviously try to win. I think Chelsea will have too much for them. I'd normally call this as a 1-1 draw. I feel like every Chelsea Man United game, I go for a 1-1 draw. But with Chelsea's form, I'm going to call Chelsea to win 2-1. So that's it. Those are my predictions for this week's Premier League fixtures. I've went into a bit more depth on some of these games, as there's some really exciting fixtures here that I'm really looking forward to. And it's the run up to Christmas. So the games, they're coming thick and fast. And there's a lot of shocks around this time of year. Maybe like Watford beating Leicester, or Burnley drawing with Spurs. There's some of the games I've predicted, and they're things that could happen as a lot of form changes around this time of year. If you agree or disagree with those sort of predictions, let me know. And put your predictions down in the comments. Please like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more Premier League content.